Hey everyone, it's Mandy N back in the house. Oh, wait a minute. I don't normally do this, do I? I've taken over spoken local and I've got a special guest with me. You want to speak up, special guest?
Hi, Amanda. How are you today, Amanda?
Yeah. How does it feel to be on the other side of the table?
Very weird, right? So, it may have happened before this, Amanda, actually, was spoken over. Because I've got the feeling you've done a takeover before now. A long time ago, mind you, wasn't it? So,
Yeah.
but I said, but no, it was a long time ago. Either way, yeah, it's a weird one, this. So, how should we start this today, Amanda, then, with you taking control of it as a takeover?
I think you should tell people why I've taken over.
Yes, because it's a rarity, this, because people would know over time I talk to everybody and anybody. Never about myself, Amanda, do I?
Well, you talk to me about yourself quite a lot.
But yes, and that's not on podcast territory, that Amanda, is it? So it's a bit too. Anyway, we'll change topics there anyway. So yes, Amanda, why am I here today?
Because you're promoting your book, which is a sequel to Birth, and this one's called The Death.
Yeah, cheerful topic, really, isn't it? So yeah, about this book itself. Yeah, it is the direct sequel to my first novel, Birth. Now, Birth itself was obviously about the birth of a creative person. Death is about what comes next, and unfortunately, the title says it all. Death. That is death. Now, it's quite funny, this actually. We should have mentioned this before when we were doing a little podcast with Amanda earlier on today. But we didn't spot this, Amanda, did we? Until about a month before we bought it out.
Yeah, we both have death in our titles.
Yeah, now mine predates Amanda, to be honest, there's some distance this book does, because it's Birth took me, well, it has to be honest, 17 years to complete. This hasn't taken quite as long, but it's been a trickier book to do this. So now, the reason I say that is because the book itself is, you think, Amanda, it's a controversial topic, just talking quite frankly about your own demise, isn't it, really?
Yeah. So, what made you decide to write this book as a sequel? And was it always planned, or did you get to the end and think, there's still more of the story to tell?
Well, straight away, always when I did these two, did the original Birth, Death was getting developed at the same time as it. Although, when I first bought them both together, because Death came along a couple of years after when I was into the Birth process, I didn't actually initially plan for them to be in the same series. Just I was going to do it as two different characters, but characters from Birth started creeping into the Death book, and so it kind of made sense, if you know what I mean, to bring it to then to bring it forward like as a direct sequel. Although it's quite different in a few ways.
This one of the differences is that you've got the character who's actually dead from the start telling the story. Was that always planned?
Yes, it was actually. Yes, that was his same character, and he's not another Andy, unfortunately. I seem to have a habit when a lot of my major character books either tend to get called Andrew or Andy, and the female character, not in these two books, mind you, it's usually called Amanda, which is, but
There is an
yeah,
Amanda in there, though.
is it?
Yeah, there was an Amanda mentioned. There
Oh,
was quite a lot of characters, so I think by that time you were just running out of names.
probably a lot
I
of
don't think she
inspiration.
has much of a part in
No, it's
it.
probably a belated cameo. Probably I've forgotten I'd done that, yeah. But yeah, it was always was when I first started this book off. I knew from the beginning where it was going to be, and I knew straight away if it's questions like does it make sense, Amanda, if I call this an emotional thriller?
Yeah,
Because it
yeah.
states right at the beginning he's dead. He knows he's dead, but then he's going looking back at his life in a very all over the place, fractured look at it, and he's revealing slowly what led to his death. So by the end of the book, you've got a full picture of what happened to him since birth. And it does stand up by itself, his book anyway. But then you find out by the end of the book how he died and what next.
Oh, so you have to read all the way to the end.
Yeah.
And I have to admit, I've only read 30 pages so far.
Now, this has happened to Amanda before now when she's done book reviews on books when she's ripped it to pieces after reading 15 pages and abandoning it. I hope you read the rest of this book, Amanda, and don't slag it
I
off.
am. I'm going to read
What year?
it this year.
Right, anyway, go on. What else you got to ask me then?
So you finished the birth book and you went straight onto this book. Did you ever think that you wanted to have like a break just to let it settle, or were you always gonna carry on
No, it
straight
wasn't
away?
actually. Originally, I was going to do a detective, like sci-fi detective book, and I got a fair bit into that book as well. I did, and this came up when I was a conversation with you actually, Amanda, when you were asking me, had I would I write a sequel to Birth, and I told you about it a couple of years before, and I think you've probably forgotten. And I told you then about the sci-fi thriller book I've got in mind, which has got a working title, detective novel, original, I know,
Yeah.
but that's on about 27,000 words. But then you turned around and said to me, "You've got this death book. Shouldn't you be doing this one next to get the story finished?" Now remember your words that, and it was,
That sounds like me nagging
yeah.
at you.
But it's a tricky one, this Amanda, because with the book itself, Birth was always fairly structured. I just had to learn how to write the novel because it's my first novel. Death is a much more experimental book, really, because there's no chapters in it. And I knew where it was going, but it was just trying to get the ending right. Do you know what I mean? When you start on top of
Yeah.
a book and you're quite clearly going to tell everybody he's going to die, what's the ending going to be then?
So was it the ending that you thought it would be by the time you got to it, or had it changed?
Oh, that's where it gets a bit tricky because at the end of the book, I put in last words of the book is beyond. Because what actually happened originally with this book was I got to about 35,000 words on it, and I ended up dropping 10,000 words from it because it went off in a completely different direction, which is still that same universe. And I think it's going to be it will be a third book, this, or maybe a novella, I'm not sure yet what happens after that. So that's why I put beyond on it because it goes in something don't really want to go in a lot of detail at the moment, but the story's not finished. Even though the main character is dead, the story's not finished.
Yeah, it's not going to be like Supernatural, is it, when it comes back?
Wait and see. I'm not 100% sure myself yet, to be honest. I don't think so. I don't think so. But there is something I've not told you. Certainly, it's quite major.
Right. Okay. I know at the end you got some footnotes as well. What made you decide to do that?
Yeah, I wanted to look at this was a bit different where I put footnotes where I started off as one piece actually. I got developed in a workshop, an online workshop, where they asked us for another story you've wrote, write a story looking at the characters from a different perspective where, say, like it was a loving husband and wife, how would this react if they hated each other? So that's what I did. I started looking at it, this little story. It's about about 1,000 words, and I put it in the back of the book as a footnote because I thought it was fun. It showed because death's about, even though it's about death, it's a love story between the two main characters, and they love each other to bits. But unfortunately, he can't be there after he dies. I wanted to look at it at the funeral when everybody hated each other, almost like a bit so it came like a lot of love story, a hate story, and then when that story was done. I've read it out at a few places while this book was still in, well, discussion really myself. And I wrote another couple, just looking at the characters. I wanted to try and get to know them more. And I thought, do extra little stories lets me have a look at them. And I liked the stories and I thought they deserved to be in the book.
I know one's set in an alternative reality as well. What made you decide to do that?
That was just thought said that one. That's the one I wrote in a workshop. Yeah. No, but like I said that's what it was just a series. It was fun to do. And it's like people wonder at you, man. You did a story some years ago, didn't you? When a number of your characters, various series, met in a cafe, didn't they?
Yeah, I had three different characters and they had a conversation, and it helped to inspire one of the books for one of the characters as well.
I think long term for myself, when I've done another couple of books and bits and pieces, I'd like to do that myself when they all walk in. And it'd be interesting to see how they all react to each other. So I think it's a good challenge for that. That's in the future. But yeah, that's the footnotes thing, like this alternative universe. It helped me gain a deeper understanding and sadness for the main character. I felt they deserved to be people to see them because I was really pleased with them as just little extra pieces at the end of the book.
Yeah, I know you've mentioned that you did a lot of workshops, and I remember you doing a lot of workshops as well in between jobs and things like that. So, how would you say that had an impact on you writing this book?
It helped me experiment, that's for sure of it. And it helped me. There's a couple of things with this book. Is the crunch point would be these footnote stories. Because well, I think there's four or five of them. I've lost count myself in the back of the book. And they all came from one way or another through the workshops and over characters. Because in the first book itself, Birth, there is what, 5 or 6 characters in the book. Most, not all of them, come back for the second book for various reasons. So bringing in extra characters, I want to try and these stories are very, very helpful to help me understand the journey of these new characters in the book.
So, out of the characters, apart from the main character, then, did you have any particular favorite characters that you liked writing about?
I liked one called Frank, and and mostly because he reminded me of somebody I used to work with, and he's quite a rough and ready builder basically, but he's quite a funny, he's a scary character. That's what I liked him. He's that sort of guy you'd want him on your side if you know what I mean. If you got into a fight, you
Yeah,
certainly wouldn't.
think
You wouldn't want to be fighting
think
him.
I remember in the bit that I did read, you were talking about him having a fight with somebody.
Yeah, and main character Andy's brother,
Yeah,
he smashed him up in a pub right over football. So yeah, but I don't know. I liked it. You know what I mean? Like there's a lot. It's a big like your Death to All Men book. There's a lot of background characters in this book, and it's one of those ones where it was just they all floated in and out the main character's life, and it was just everything interlinked towards the end of it, so you could see what led to his death, unfortunately. So I was trying to cover a lot of bases of it, and it worked because it showed people how like in your own life, when you get to the end of it, you know a lot more people, and you realise sometimes and how everybody influences you, you're not bringing everything you go through.
yeah. So, what do you plan to do next with your writing then?
Well, a minute. There's a couple of things. I wrapped the book up a couple of months ago, and I took about 2 months off. I did the last edit for it, but I set it for pre-order, and I've done 10,000 words of sci-fi novella actually. That I've got to try and work out the last chapter for it. I think it's going to be a tricky one, this one, and it's basically about the last man on Earth and his robot after they been to manned mission to Mars and seen the Earth blow up. And then they go leave Mars and discover there's something in the hull.
Mhm.
And that's not what we think. It could easily be a horror story, this, but it's not. It's
Yeah,
just grief. It's a story of grief, basically. Done 5 chapters on it, and there's one more chapter to go. So it'll be about 20,000 words if I let it, but that'll be the end of the year. And I'm debating about whether I should go and do my detective novel after that or go and do Beyond.
yeah. And I know you also have some stories, don't you? But that's for when you've finished a certain job, which we can't go into very much.
Yeah, I've done
Yeah,
a load of stories in that, but the other thing I've got dangling around it's I mean, it's the nature of the beast when you write this. I often have 4 or 5 projects on the go. You know already, Amanda, like I did a cowboy story last year, didn't I? A cowboy romance story.
yeah. Which you got published.
Yes, I got published
Yeah.
72 hours after I wrote it, and
Is that
this
your personal record?
probably is actually that, yeah. Because like, 'cause people wonder what that story was. Amanda, you gave me a dare, didn't you?
Yeah,
What
to
was
write a story, and the line was, "You can leave your hat on."
So it turned into a cowboy romance story. I had great fun writing it, and it got published pretty quickly after I finished it. I've done about another 7 or 8 chapters on that, and that could easily end up in a novel or novella. It's at the stage where I sometimes have several projects. It depends what wants to be wrote next sometimes. Do you get that yourself, man? Sometimes you can have several things dangling, and it's
Yeah,
what they want writing done at the
and I
most.
think as well, it's like if you get writer's block with one of them, you're probably going to be more inspired to write at least one of the other ones. So then you keep going.
Yeah. And so what's going to happen is generally not sure what's coming next, honestly. And as I like this sci-fi novella to get wrote next, but it's caused me problems in the last chapter. And then I've got this sci-fi detective novel, and that's if I can get back into that, that's probably going to be fairly good to write, to be honest. But we'll see. Watch this space.
Okay, so where can we buy a copy of your book?
Well, at the minute, it's still coming up on a lot of the websites at the moment. But if you go, it's certainly, I'm hoping it's going to be Amazon, certainly. But I know it's on Barnes and Nobles and Apple and lots of other secondary bookshops at the moment. So it's going to be out fairly promptly.
Okay, so everybody go out and buy that when it becomes available.
Yeah, otherwise, Amanda, I can't go women murders on you.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'm going to have to take control here because you're so quiet and shy, you, Amanda, aren't you? Particularly after that Deaf to One Men book. So, but yeah, we will see you on Two Shakes of Ice, guys, when I'm going to read out exclusive extra.